Picture this. You're leading a team towards a big deadline, but half of the group's on a different page. Morale's dropping, progress slows, and you're thinking, what am I missing? If that hits home, you're not alone. Poor communication trips up so many leaders. It's like a hidden roadblock. But here's the good news. You can break through it. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 proven strategies to master leadership communication. Practical tools to turn chaos into clarity and get your team firing on all cylinders. I'm Anson, and I'm here to help leaders like you go from feeling stuck to leading with confidence. Whether your team's remote, in person, or a mix, how you connect is everything. Stick with me, we're heading to the flip chart to break it down with all the examples and stories of my own journey. Ready to level up? Let's dive in. Leadership is a very interesting topic. Through my decades of experience dealing with different people, I basically can conclude that leadership is more of a science than it is of an art. So art will be things like your singing, playing a piano, playing violin, playing instruments, and then if you don't put emotions into it, the song doesn't come out nice, the music doesn't come out nice, right? So for music, you need a lot of your emotions, your artistic feel, the vibes, to actually connect with people. For leadership, mostly it's all science. Mostly it's you understand the different strategies, you'll be able to handle most of the situations. Okay? So now let's go and dive in straight into the 7 strategies. First strategy I want to talk about is active listening. This is a huge one. It's not about staying quiet when someone talks. It's really about digging into what they're saying and then you showing them you are all in. It's really about what the team feels, right? Because if you're all in listening to them, the team's morale shoots up, misunderstandings drop, and that the low morale you've been fighting against, it loses, right? Because everyone sees that you are there for them. Everything that you do, it starts turning around for the better. This is the foundation of connecting as a leader, and I've got a bunch of ways to make it work for you. Let's go through it one by one, but I'll write it down for you, all 5 things first. First is repeat. Then is ask. I will go through each one. Then it's the body. Then it's the pause. Then is summarize. So what does this all mean? Repeat basically just means paraphrasing. You're technically repeating what the person said. So for example, it will be something like, so you're saying the timeline's tight because of this. This is basically what they were saying to you. You might not fully understand it, but by repeating, there's 2 main benefits. One is it gives you time to actually process it when you're actually talking. The brain is very funny, where you talk and when you think, it can be done in parallel. So when you are saying it, it actually gives you time, but at the same time, if you don't fully understand it, that's also fine. Why? Because when you say it, you repeat it back to the person thinks you actually understand it. And then you go back out after the meeting and then think through what you just said, which is also fine because you're repeating, you're not adding any extra words. And then when you have questions, you can go back to the person. So paraphrasing is the number 1 technique under this strategy. And second is ask. So what does this mean? Ask clarifying questions. Asking clarifying questions is so important because when there are things that are being discussed, we want to know, for example, what the motive of the person is talking about. Are there any assumptions? Are there any gaps? So for example, for this particular task, what's the toughest part here? Can you tell me more about this? Why are we doing this? How does this help the project? These questions will give you more things that you need to know in order for you to either complete the task, or if someone that is a bit more junior than you, then you can also understand their motive, or even for someone more senior than you. By asking clarifying questions, you will actually understand more And it shows that you are actually listening to the person that you're talking to. So it actually digs deeper and shows you really care about the details. So that's for clarifying questions, which I'll simply just write as ask here. 3 is body language. Now, body language is something that I've learned along the years. But one thing that really struck me was a very important guru in my life, Tony Robbins. Listened to one of his, I'll call it tapes in the old days, his personal development tapes. Basically, he was saying if you smile, when you start smiling, you start feeling the positive energy. But if you start crossing your arms and you're doing all this, you will feel negative. So it's not only just you. When you smile, your vibes also go towards the person you're talking to. If you do this, they will also feel the same. And especially when you do this, they might feel to up their defenses when they're talking to you. So it's very important that you yourself, when you're talking to someone, you have the right body language. You lean in a bit, nod, keep eye contact, especially on videos. Because when you're talking to someone on a video, they can't feel your vibe. They have to just interpret from the video of the face that you're putting there, and how they can interpret from there is how you actually push it. So for example, if you're on video and you're talking to them and you're looking somewhere else, they will actually know. They will really actually know. Unless it's like a very close group of teammates that you have and you're separated all over the different places around the world, and it's just a daily call, a stand-up. Sometimes you need to be on your phone, that's fine. Okay, but for the calls that are not as frequent and you're not as close-knit with the team, it's important that you're really showing your body language. Body language matters so much, and this is part of active listening. And the fourth part is pausing. Pausing before you jump in to respond. Pausing has so many benefits. One is when you're in a very tense conversation, pausing basically disrupts the whole flow, disrupting in a good way. Because let's say someone that you're talking to is trying to accuse you of something, the person you're talking to is expecting you to react in a very, very big way, right? And then when you react in a big way and then you become emotional, that is exactly what they want to see. In their mind, they're like, see, Anson is like this. That's why he's talking like this, because something is wrong here. However, if you pause, right? If you pause, what then happens here is that they are not getting the reaction that they need, and it gives you time to digest. So there are two parts where you can actually digest before you respond. One is by pausing, two is by repeating. These 2 points allow you to actually give a much more important response. And if it's a very tense argument, it will help diffuse the tension. Fifth thing here is to summarize. When you are as a leader and you have a whole team of people listening to you, we can't assume that 100% of them, you can get their attention 100% of the time. So sometimes at a certain point, you will need to summarize. You will need to find a way to actually say, we need to wrap things up. Okay, so the big thing here is, okay, did I get it right? So when you're talking to them, at the very least, at the very end, you summarize one particular, as many Americans would like to call it, a nugget. What is the main thing that you can learn from this conversation? Because at the very least, if you get the main crux of it, and they have that in their minds, they, from that particular nugget, that information, can then derive all the other parts of the information that was spoken about. So you're basically implanting into the mind of the person you're talking to that particular thing, and then they will eventually remember the whole conversation. So under active listening, there's a lot of parts. It's not just sitting there listening. You repeat what they said by paraphrasing, but repeating, combining with the pauses when you slow down before you do the repeating, very powerful. Making sure when you repeat and let's say you start understanding what's going on, ask clarifying questions. Ask them, so you were saying this, why is it like this? How does this help? All these things help you to get the outcome that you want when you're talking to a group of people or to a particular person. Your body language, how you actually show, how you fold your arms. Unless you really don't want to talk to that person, then you actually fold your arms and don't talk to them. But how you lean in, how you nod, this is all very important when you're talking to people. And at the very end, we summarize what was actually said, exactly what I'm doing right here. So this is basically active listening. And I have been a very big advocate for this. For most meetings that I go to, I usually talk last. Because I'm also the chair of a non-profit association here in Singapore, and I have to make sure that I understand every board member, what they're actually saying. The only way to understand is to stay quiet, to understand. And I will also paraphrase what they say, right? And if there's a lot of concepts that I really need to understand that I don't understand, I will leverage on paraphrasing to get it into my mind first. And then by the end of the meeting, if I still have questions, at least because I repeated it out, then I will know that I will need to ask more questions to my board members after the meeting. But if I did not say it out, I would have forgotten it. The mind is very funny. Once you say something, the mind will remember, right? So this is basically the first strategy. Let's go on to the next one. All right, strategy number 2. Clear messaging. Ever had your team staring at you like, what's he even asking for? If your words are fuzzy, they're lost. And that's when chaos sneaks in. Clear messaging is about saying it in a very straight way so everyone knows what's up and what to do next. When they get it, confusion disappears. Morale picks up and stuff actually gets done. This is one thing that's a must, and I have techniques to help you build up very clear messaging when you talk to people. Alright, so here are the 5 main things, and then I'll go through it one by one. Simple. Okay. Direct. Steps. Check. And repeat. So what do these all mean? First, basically this just means keeping it simple. Keep the word simple. I'm sure you've heard of the acronym KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? This is actually what this means. Because a lot of the times, a lot of leaders will try to show that they have a lot of experience and they use complex jargon to show their authority. But in today's day and age, it's about the results. It's not really about sitting up there anymore. It's getting things done, especially in a remote sort of setting. When they are sitting by themselves, they want to see that they are part of the team, and then even though they're in a remote scenario, things still get done. Taking action is what matters in today's world right now. So basically what simple actually just means, just ditch the jargon. No words like synergize deliverables. Instead, just say something like finish this by Friday. Plain and simple. Keep it simple is what matters in clear messaging. And the second is literally be direct. I know a lot of people, a lot of new managers that just sat in the new position, they are worried that the trust is not there with their team. And when you are worried, you start speaking in things that are very indirect. However, the opposite is true. When you are direct and your actions show that whatever you do is getting things done, this is where the trust is being built. So being direct, don't dance around. Just start with the point saying, for example, we're launching next week. Here's the plan. Okay, keep things simple, no jargon, keep it direct. Number 3 is break it down, step by step. Don't lump everything, just putting all your thoughts there. You may have a lot of thoughts when you want someone to do something, but you must translate that into step-by-step, simple messaging and direct for the person you are talking to. So if the task is very big that you want your team to work on, chop it up into steps. Step 1, draft it. Step 2, send it by Wednesday. Things that are easy to follow. When you do that, it will actually help your team to get things done, which is you as a leader, when you delegate, you actually want your team to get things done in a very simple way. And then when there are steps, they can ask back to you and say, hey, step 2 is like this. Is it a bit too big? Can we break that down again? Or what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? But if you lump it into one big paragraph and send it to them, one, they lose interest in reading things so big, right? It's too hard for them. It may be easy for you because everything comes from your mind, but you need to break it down. And when you have it step by step, you can also trace which part of the steps were not clear, and then we can target that as well. And number 4 is check yourself. Check yourself meaning asking your team, say it out loud. Is there anything that I said that you don't understand? But you must say it in a very genuine way. That's why I said in the very first part, this is where active listening comes in. This is where you show your body language to ask them that, is there anything that you don't understand? And you're actually being there for them, listening to their feedback on what you just said. Making it crystal clear is what matters in this part of this strategy. And the very last one, but not the least, is repeat. So when you are giving a particular instruction, you're talking to someone, just repeat and summarize at the end. So are we all locked in this Friday for this particular task? And if they understand and say yes, the accountability will start sinking in into them. Okay, so clear messaging, 5 steps. Keeping things simple, keeping the points direct. You break down if the tasks are very big. You also then make sure that you check yourself, asking your team that, are you clear? If there's things that are not clear, especially in the steps, we keep talking it through. And then at the very end, you summarize. So are we okay for Friday to complete this? So this is how you actually get your messaging across to the team. This has been a very big thing for me because I had stakeholders, especially in different meetings, working with banks, working with policy people, working with my ex-CEO and many different C-suites. Sometimes they're rushing and they just met a customer and they just want to write things straight to me. And then when you have a one sentence without the context, it's very hard to answer. So in order for me to respond to that, I will actually go up to them or have a coffee if it's with the government to actually say, what is it that you mean here? Okay, what's the motive behind this? What's this one-liner? Because the one-liner, for sure, it's because it's what they thought through and then they said that one line. But what we actually want to know are the thoughts behind that one-liner that they wrote to you. This is what I usually do. When I talk to people, I will keep things simple. Simple, not just one-liners, but it answers the context. It has very simple steps to talk to the person. Okay? And so now let's go on to the third strategy. Choosing the right channels. Communication has really evolved quite fast in the past 50 years compared to the last 300-400 years. The main way of communicating back then was literally face-to-face. And then we had the telephone, which was on the call. Once we had the internet, we then started using emails. We also had SMS in between, yes. And then we had instant messaging, which basically became the main form of communication between family, between your workmates, and so on. But now it has evolved again. So, for example, back then, pre-internet days, we expect calls. When there's SMS, we actually feel that if a person is sincere, we actually want to hear a call from them rather than being sent an SMS. But now it's the other way. When someone is calling you, it's definitely something very, very urgent. Otherwise, it's usually through text, through WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, and so on. Calls are last, right? So it has evolved to the point where each particular way of communicating with the person, the different channels, mean a different thing, okay? And then you use it at your disposal at different times. So for example, now, as I said, we've got emails, Slack, call meetings. There's tons of ways to actually reach a team. But if you pick the wrong one, and your message will flop hard. Right? So this is about matching how you will say it on what you need done. You get it right and your team will sync up. No crossed wires, no frustration, just smooth sailing. So I've got some tricks on how to help you with this part, with this strategy. So let me list down on the 5 things that we need for this part of the strategy. Urgent. Complexity. Crew. Test. And default. So what do these all mean? This basically is actually not that hard, but sometimes you just have to understand that you need to take feedback, which we will talk about in the test part. So first thing is urgency. So we need to ask ourselves, do we need it now? If we need it now, then we need to go on a call, go on Slack, or go on WhatsApp. Hey, the client's waiting, jump on this. If it's not urgent, then we will use email. The second one is complexity. So depending on what you need to talk about, is it something that is material, something that's very big? Is there a very big strategy shift? Then for this, you will need to book a call, have a meeting, or have a physical meeting. You must talk it out if it's very big. If it's just a quick update, then you just either email or WhatsApp and so on. And if you really need their attention, okay, at least need the acknowledgement, definitely you go and use WhatsApp, Slack, and so on. Emails, usually it's for back burner or for things that have require more detail, but yet it doesn't require the urgency as we discussed. Okay, number 3 is know your crew. Because if your team is remote, then you need to go on video, chat with them. And people that are working remote, there's actually a number of factors that a lot of people don't consider. Yes, the people that work remote, they want their own time. As a leader or as a boss, you don't see what they're actually doing. But that's part of the whole package. At the same time, even though they're working remote, they also want to be feeling as if they're part of a team. So for me, when I work with someone that's in a remote setting, I would want them to turn on their video. I actually don't mind them if they're using their phone. Because when they're using their phone, they may be working, they may not be working. But again, in a remote setting, it's very important to show them that you trust them. So as long as I have their attention, and when I'm talking to them, when they're off their phone and then they look back at me, I'm actually fine. You can actually feel all these body language cues through a video, and it's very important. It's more like telling them that there's a whole team here with you. Even though you're in a remote setting, yes, you want more flexibility, I still want to tell you that you're part of a team. So there's another group of people. There are some people that don't want to go on calls. They want to see what the agenda is, they want to read. If they are that type of person that wants to read first, let them read. Send them a document. Send them a long email. When they're ready, then they'll go on a call with you. And there's the third type. Usually these are the C-suite people, project managers. They are very busy. So don't send them a long email. Don't ask them for a call. Firstly, it's just to get their attention first. Send them a short message. But not the type, as I said, unclear message. Because when it's unclear, when they're so busy, they actually don't know what you're talking about, they will also miss it as well. So you must know who you're talking to. This is under the third technique, under crew. Fourth one is test it out. Sometimes you may not get it correct, especially when you're going into a new company, you don't know anyone yet, but you need to communicate with them. Be prepared to be using the wrong communication. Don't get stuck on saying, hey, this guy, I've sent him an email so many times, he doesn't listen to me. He may not be the type that wants to read emails. I have to confess, I don't like reading emails as well. I'm very happy for people to WhatsApp me, to give me calls, okay? So testing it's very important. And then fifth, After testing, setting a default. Once you are understanding the way things are being done, then have a default way. Maybe the company you're working in already has a default way. The previous company I was in was using something like Slack, and that's how we communicate. And for example, that particular way is acknowledged by the busy people, by the people that only want to read documents first, by remote. Use the default way first, and if it doesn't really get to them, and you understand them as a colleague of what they usually want, maybe the next step for the guys that want to read, the document readers, send them a nice email. Send them an email instead to tell them that I have sent you a message here. Either can you go back to see your messages, or just as out of goodwill, I have written out what you need to know for this particular project and so on. All right, so let's go on to the fourth strategy. Empathy in communication. So I wrote a book called Leadership Skills for New Managers. You can see that on my profile. Someone wrote a review on my book saying that I have written out 72 times in my book on the word empathy. This is exactly what leadership is about. Leadership and bosses are two very different things, because when you're a boss, you point to people what they want to do. Being a leader, you are the one actually at the back encouraging everyone to move together with you. But in order for them to actually move with you, you need to understand things they're going through. Sometimes you might need to go and know their personal lives, because if they're not answering you, they are missing in action, MIA as we call it, we need to find out what's going on. But we're trying to find out what's going on not because to see if they have an excuse, but we want to feel what they're going through. It's very important. Empathy is the key thing that I think out of all the strategies for you to become a very, very good leader. There are 5 things that I focus on this particular strategy. First is name. Ask, tone, feel, and follow. Okay, so what does this all mean? Name basically is saying very directly what you are seeing. So you're basically saying something like, I can tell that this deadline is stressing you out. Let's figure it out. This particular part of the empathy, you might be making assumptions, but the key intent is you're seeing what's there at face value, and then you're saying it. You need to name it first. If it's something that's not correct what you said, the person that you're talking to will come back to you anyway, saying no, it's not like this. Okay, and then what do? You activate the first strategy, active listening. What is it that they're actually talking about? Right? So name is basically just saying what you're seeing first, saying it out. Second part is ask. So what is ask about? Ask is basically asking them how are they holding up. Try something like, how's this task hitting you? Are you having a very hard time now? What's the heaviest part of this particular task that you have? So basically what this does is it opens them up. Right after you label, you ask them what's going on. Third is the tone. Especially when there are particular projects, deadlines are coming, everyone is stressed up. You as a leader need to stay calm, need to put emotions out and say in a very, very calm way. Instead of saying, get this done, say something like, I know it's a lot, how can I help? We're working as a team. Can you let me know so that I can help? You're not really actually helping per se, but even by saying that, you can already diffuse the tension that's required. But your main aim is to not say things in a very stressful way when your team is already stressed. Number 4 is feel. This is where empathy comes in, right? You need to, and I know I did say a few moments ago that leadership is more about science than it is about art. This, even though it's a very big part, But out of all the strategies, it's a very small one, but this is where you need to focus on, where you're feeling, not showing your emotion, but you are trying to gather their emotion in a very calm way. So this is the only artistic part of it, is feel. All right, understand what they're going through. What is it like for them? You want to hear from them. Are they feeling stressed? Or, oh, it's easy, it's good. Okay, you're empathizing their work. Okay, you want your team to know that you're backing them, even though you're not the one doing it. They want to know that you are there for them. But when you ask them the question, how are they feeling? I tell you, they immediately will feel a lot better. The morale stays up, productivity will also go up. Sometimes they just want to talk to someone to see if you have their back. For me, leadership is something I actually see it very tangible, okay? I actually want all my team members, many people have heard me say this, to become leaders themselves. But because you're the leader looking after a team, you delegate work to them, but when something goes wrong, you are there to back them. That's what a leader is supposed to be. Number 5 here is follow. What I mean by here is follow through. So if they say something like, I'm swamped, don't just nod. Don't just say, okay, you're swamped. Then you ask them, okay, I understand you are swamped. Let's see how we can deal with this. What we're going to do now is this. Okay, so there are 5 things here under the umbrella of this strategy. First is you name what you're seeing. After you name what you're seeing, you then ask the question. Feel how they're feeling. Right? So these two are actually linked. Third is you don't scream. You say in a very nice way. They need to feel that you're very calm. And the last but not least is follow. Follow through with the actions. If there's something that is stuck, don't just stand there. Go work together and see how you can get that task done. Okay? So this is the 4th strategy. Let's go to the next one. So the next one, strategy number 5, is feedback loops. Have you ever noticed some teams just stay on track while others drift away? This is basically the secret sauce. It's about keeping the conversation flowing both ways, not just barking orders to the team. Feedback loops catch hiccups very early, so there are main 5 things in this particular strategy. 1 is check-in. 2 is safe. 3 is mixed. 4th is act. And last one is circle. And I will explain what each one of these mean. So the first one is check-in. Check-in basically just means either you have a daily stand-up or weekly one-on-ones. Just ask them very quickly what's good, what's tricky. So basically keeping you plugged in. As I said again, they want to know that you are at the back backing them. You're not at the front just going, but you are actually at the back of the whole boat, that they know that you are there with them. So that's what check-in means. Okay, second means make it safe. Make it safe means there's no judgment on what they do, and they know that you are not judging them every time you ask them a particular question. So when you're not judging them, they will be more open to say things. The biggest problem right now is there are many companies where there are bosses and not leaders. Every time when they ask a question, they have these judgy eyes on their own staff. And when you're judging someone and that person is looking at you and they know that they're judging them, they don't really want to talk properly. So the second part here is giving them a safe environment to voice out their concerns. Number 3 is mix it up. Sometimes not all team members like to voice up. I have team members that like to talk a lot. I have team members that are really shy. I have team members that they're not shy, they just want to get things done, and only when things really get... So again, it's very similar. You need to know, not just like for the channels, which channel that person likes to talk about. You need to know how to deal with the different types of people. If some people don't want to go and talk at every single meeting, maybe that particular person doesn't want to be with the whole team, then you might need to spend one-on-one with them. So you need to mix it up in terms of how you want to get feedback from your team. And fourth is act. Act on what you are going to do, what you say you're going to do. Okay? So for example, when you talk to your team, you've asked them, so what's happening here? Is there some challenges for meeting that particular deadline? And then long story short of that particular conversation, you say that we're going to do this. Act on it. Do it. Don't just push it on them. Sometimes when it's a crisis, leaders also need to get their hands dirty, maybe not on that particular task, but actually sitting down with them, going through with them. So for example, when I was in the compliance department of a particular company, there was a particular task that requires us to stay late night. In a way, I actually did not need to be there, but I know my teammate will be able to finish that particular task. And it is very obvious that even for me, just sitting with him, staying there for 5 hours, it already makes the environment much better. Your teammates just need to know, with you as the leader, you are behind them. And you will see me keep repeating this all the time. Leaders is about being in a very strong leadership role, is to show them you have their backs. Yes, you expect a lot from them, but when things go wrong, you have their backs. That's what this all means. And the fifth one is, after the feedback loop, in this particular whole scenario is when there's a crisis, you need to work on it, you need to fix it, and we need to act on things that we said we were going to fix. When things are much better, we then ask the teammates, are we in a better situation now? How are we right now? And if they're positive, that's great. We went from a place where everything was negative, everything was stressful, and after you fix it, and when you ask, it reinforces the positivity in them, which then helps the morale of the team. Checking in with them, talking to them, you must be there for them, take action. After when things are done, things are going well, go back to them and ask, how are we? Are things much better now? When they say something positive, it helps the whole team. So this is strategy number 5. Let's go to number 6. All right, number 6 is transparency. And there are also 5 things in this part as well, 5 techniques. Big picture is number 1, right? Tough is the second one. Why is the third one. Open is the fourth one. Steady is the last one. So what do these all mean? Okay, first is basically share the big picture of this particular project. This is basically the why. Okay, for a particular project that needs to be done, you as the leader might have information that comes from the CEO, comes from another head of another department, but your team members may not know about it. Yes, there may be information that they may not need to know, and there is always this thing that in this part of the world they call it need to know basis. Sometimes I think that is a bit too strict. I believe in transparency where I need to give them enough information, more than just enough information, so that they understand why they need to do this, why it's good for the company, why it also helps them with their experience as well. So sharing the big picture is very important because it answers the main question, why are we doing this? So say something like, we're gunning for this particular project for this month. Here's where we're at. Second one is tough. What does tough mean? As a leader, you have a whole team with you, but when things don't go right, you are the one that is backing this whole thing when things don't go right. That's what a leader does. So what tough means is owning the tough stuff. The things that are hard, you have the full ownership of it. You don't dodge it. You basically say, okay, we missed this particular thing today. Here's why. What do we do next? So if there's a deadline that's missed, it's not because of your teammate. It's because of you. You have to own that particular point. okay? You do not throw any of your teammates under the bus. When things don't go the right way, it is on you. That is leadership. And number 3 is, which links to the big picture, is why. Why is very important because a lot of the things that happens, people only know the what. They may know the how, but they don't have the motivation to do it. But when you start explaining the why of a particular project, I tell you they'll be very motivated to do it because everyone, when they enter a particular company, they inherently want to help the company to do better. They inherently want the department to be recognized. So by saying why, it gives them the motivation to do things. 4 is open the floor. We don't just tell someone or tell your team what to do. We want to listen to them on, for example, a particular task A or particular project A, listen to them to say something like, I don't think this can be done because we have this. It happens because there's always a disconnect with people that are actually doing something and with the people that have a vision to get things done. And the people that are thinking far ahead, especially the C-suite people, the CEOs, COOs, and so on, they don't know things that are on the ground. So you, as a person mediating both sides, if you're not in the C-suite, but you've just come out as a leader, you need to know how to manage the expectations of your higher-ups and also your team. But the only way to do that is to let them speak. Being a leader isn't really just about you telling them what to do. It's opening the floor. What's not clear? Can you let me know? Am I making some assumptions? What are your concerns? Let them talk. And number 5, keep it steady. This is very similar to check-ins, as I was saying. We see where we are. For me, I will usually have a daily stand-up to the point where it is maybe not needed. Okay, when things are steady, we may make it into a weekly stand-up. I won't go so far as a quarterly stand-up. Sometimes it's a monthly stand-up. But when things are not going the way that it's supposed to be, then I'll make the frequency of the stand-ups much more frequent. I also don't want to have the daily stand-ups on a very frequent basis because if my team is motivated and know what they need to do and we're aligned and I am randomly checking in, daily stand-ups sometimes are not really needed. But only when at the point you're just starting a new project, getting things going, then we will need more frequent meetings. But whatever it is, keeping people regularly updated is as important. You may not need it daily, but just keeping it in check so that everyone knows where things are. Regular updates, here's your latest, so that they don't have any shocks. Not only shocks, we also want to make sure that they're aligned with everything. Especially when a company is growing at a very exponential pace, misalignment is usually what happens that makes things go all haywire. So for example, one particular department may say that, okay, we're doing this. Another department may be doing something that's already very far ahead. And then whatever this department is doing, or your department is doing, may have already been obsolete. So the last one, obviously but not the least, is storytelling. You know the phrase, right? It's magical. Stories sell. Facts don't sell, stories sell. But key is not to manipulate people with stories. Stories help the mind to understand through other types of analogies. Because when you sell a story and the story aligns with the person can feel, oh, okay, I get what he means. So this is how it works. Don't use it for manipulation on a person's mind. But this is the 7th strategy that I want to talk about. And there are 5 things as well. Tight. 1. Tie. Human. Paint. And punch. So, for these 5, what do they mean? Tight, what I meant by here is keep it tight. So 3 beats. Problem, what you did, what's the win? Keep it short and sweet. Basically, it's telling people what have you done, what's the achievement. Even if it's something very trivial, very small, celebrating small wins is also part of the storytelling. It keeps the whole team understanding. If, for example, one particular team member may not be as productive, if another team member says a particular achievement, and then you have another team member that talks about their achievement, it will also motivate them to achieve something. Obviously, if it goes the other way where they are not even trying to achieve, it goes worse and worse, then you need to go and talk to them. That again is a whole other story outside of these 7 strategies. So for storytelling, under the first one is type. 3 things: talk about the problem, what you did, what the wins are. Number 2 is tie. What is tie? Tie it in. Link it back to the goal. So when we're doing the updates, you link it back to the goal. For this particular thing, what part of the bigger picture is it linking it back to? So for example, we're pushing X, like when we pulled off Y, make it click. What does that mean? It means just make sure that every task that your team does is that it does link back to the bigger picture. And number 3 is human. Make all things with your team very human. Even though you're a leader, you're supposed to be more senior than them, you should treat yourself as a teammate with them, or even with a client. You're basically being able to empathize with them, knowing what they're going through will change everything. For example, when Jake stepped up, it changed everything. You're basically recognizing the person. Everyone wants to be recognized. It is just part of human nature. Okay, so don't do it in a way where have an assumption that that person is doing what he's supposed to do, and therefore he's being hired to do this. I don't need to say anything. No, praises are important, but then again, not praising all the time. Maybe during your meetings, you go and recognize one person or another. It will help motivate the whole team. So the 4th one is paint. Paint basically just means that we're letting the person know how serious the situation was. For example, if it's in a crisis, just add some descriptions onto it. So for example, you would then say, the clock was ticking. We had a very, very tight deadline. The tension was very, very tense. So you actually say all these words as well to let the team know that I, as a leader, or you as a leader, know what they went through. And the last one is, especially when you're having these weekly meetings, you end with a punch. You end with a punch saying that this is why we're here. The purpose of this department, why we're working as a team, why I'm doing this, what is the purpose? This will lock in with them that they have a purpose to do what they are doing right now. Whatever you're saying is very short and sweet. Whatever you're saying is you feel them being human. You tie everything back to the big goal. Painting it, as I said, is basically letting them know that how the situation was, and at the end, lock in the punch. This is where we are now. So this is basically strategy number 7, storytelling. I myself do a lot of storytelling. I use stories to actually tie up to the big picture for the company, cross departments, and with your own team. For me, it's very important to actually make sure your team's morale is high, that they have a purpose, they understand why they are in the company, why this particular task is being done. With that, it will keep the morale high. And especially once it's being done, you recognize them. It makes everyone feel happy to continue to work with you as a leader. All right, so there you have it. 7 proven strategies to master leadership communication. And you've got the tools now. Active listening, clear messaging, the works all the way to storytelling. And here's the big thing. You don't need to be a pro overnight, as I mentioned. Just pick one, maybe ask a better question tomorrow or tweak the next email and start. Watch what happens. Your team will get it, they feel it, and things will start clicking. That's how you go from being stuck to lead with confidence, making the kind of difference you're here for. I'm all about helping emerging leaders like you to step up and shine, and this is your blueprint to do it. You want more juice? Please comment below for your free copy of 7 proven strategies to master leadership communication. It's packed with the extras and it will tie in to everything that I have talked about in this video. Thanks for hanging out with me today. You're already on the path to crushing it. Hit that subscribe button if you want more leadership goodies, and I'll catch you in the next one. Go make it happen.